It's 4:15 now. We're loading all the cargo onto the bus and all the people and all the packs, and we're heading to Arajuno.
Okay, let's try it one last time. Nos fuimos.
Nos fuimos.
Eso. Okay, creo que es todo.
In 1956, 5 American men were killed by a remote Indian tribe in Ecuador. Almost 50 years later, their families journey to the Amazon rainforest to visit the tribe, the Waodani.
Is it in the hangar?
The fuel is over there?
We're trying to pick up our fuel, extra fuel for the airplane, but it's locked in the hangar. The good news is Galo got under the gate. The bad news is he can't fit through the hangar doors. Ya viene. Seguro, seguro. Buenos días.
No, estoy esperando el resto. Vi que el bus ya pasó, pues pego una carrera. Arriba. What?
Because I gotta wait for him.
Okay, I'll hold.
Okay, this is the first test of the morning. How many people have paper in the pocket?
Well, I definitely don't have paper in my pockets.
I need paper and I'm really right.
Arajuno, look at that.
I'll bet by wage and 8 we got them.
We've got a 2.5-hour bus ride to Arajuno. That's where the road ends. We've got a 15-minute flight to Toñampade, and then we get in dugout canoes and head 4, 5, maybe 6 hours downstream.
And then I think if you also put something in there that you can obviously take out, then it feels better too.
Okay, I'd like to make a small presentation. Into the jungle, we take only the essentials. Aaron and Marky,
Oh, right.
your very own.
She
Your
thought
very
she was
own.
the essential.
With condition. Now the whole shell road used to be from Baños down.
Yeah. 50 years ago, this is what it was like.
The road went in 2000. It finally arrived here. When we used to live down here, it was quite a flight in here, about 17, 18 minutes, long ways by trail. And then they put the road in. The road has been about halfway out here for maybe 15 years. And then it took them about 3-4 years once they started making the final push to get it here to Arajuno. Now the road is here, electricity is here, and this town is really growing fast. And that's where he built a little house first, and then the McCulley house, which is now the church, is back here, and Steve can show you down there. Steve and Mike can.
My mom and dad were missionaries down here at the same time as Steve Saint's father and Jim Elliott. They all, most of them, Jim and my father and Pete had all known each other in college. And they were all here in the early 50s. My mom and dad were stationed in Arajuno. And Nate was the pilot for all the missionaries in the area, so there was common, connection there. And they had all heard about the Aucas, that's what they called them back then, the Waodani. And they were kind of, it was kind of a famous story how dangerous a tribe they were and stuff. And I think the men together just prayed about, trying to reach them, and eventually the opportunity came. They did their bucket drops and everything went good. And a few miles up the river there where they landed on Palm Beach and had a good original contact too. I mean, it looked like it could have, it's just amazing the way God works. I mean, that contact could have been a friendly contact and stayed a friendly contact, but it just wasn't, it wasn't in his plan. So, and what was in his plan was, a lot of changes for these people. So.
Camera gear, that's, which group is this? Right now?
Just a little pliers work.
I'm looking at this fruit, which I asked Steve McCulley what it is, and he said it's an oblong-shaped fruit that grows here in Ecuador. Hello, Mr. Obvious.
We're getting ready to cruise Arajuno.
Okay.
We'll go down and check out the school here pretty quick.
This is not an oblong fruit. This is cacao, which is what chocolate's made out of.
What's the Spanish word for monkey? Mono! Ay! Ah! Mano!
The nursery school's named after my mother, and the elementary school's named after my father.
I think that's like the dining hall.
The eating place for the Eduardo McCulley School.
Right there's the church, what used to be our house.
Find some vines to swing on. What do you think? Does that sound like fun?
Yeah, he's big.
Oh my.
He be big.
Is that a snake alive?
Is it moving? It's coiled.
See, over on that side of the river is where the village used to be. They wouldn't come on this side because this was the Waodani territory.
That water is just amazing looking.
When we came in 2000, we went through Arajuno, and and it was like we were returning royalty. I mean, it was incredible how well they treated us. And school was out of session, but they rounded up all the kids, and they brought them to the school, and they stood us in front of that school, and they lined up these rows of kids with their teachers, and we were introduced, and then it was really incredible. I've always thought of my dad and his, the great story that he was a part of. But to listen to these people talk, I told you I could cry. They're all talking about my mom. They're all, Mary Lou taught us our first Bible stories, and Mary Lou taught me how to read. And they asked this teacher, why are you here? She said, I'm here because I was taught by Mary Lou. And I said I wanted to come.
Group number 1.
I just want to know that
You
that
ever read
little
the book
pack
Alive?
that said Toñampade is with us. 50 pounds of it. Let's just make sure it's right with us.
The engine will still be running. Just grab this stuff, everything that's in the back here, and take it out. And then Diane, if you'll close these doors again, and then it's done.
We got it. We can do this. Just the way I remembered it. I remember just green trees and lots of hills. I'm just excited to see our first glimpse of the river. This view makes me remember about reading when Nate would be traveling with whoever might be with them, and they would be looking, scouring for any glimpse of an alpha hut or a clearing. And and here we are, just sort of looking to see what we can see. It just makes me think of that. How excited they must have been to see that very first glimpse of what they knew to be the hut of the Waodani people.
¿Dónde no va ahí? Arajuno. Arajuno. Sí.
Come, Lube. Pique, apá. Outro vai. Tenemos padre, la razón
En la casa. Oh, en la casa.
conozcan más. Guacabuelo ponga. This is where Dayuma has lived for the last 20 years. She fled from the killings in the tribe as a young girl and then was living with Aunt Rachel outside the jungles when Dad was killed. And it was through her that the invitation came from the rest of the tribe for Aunt Rachel and Betty Elliott to go back in and live with the tribe. Yeah, you can eat that, and you can also use it for shampoo. It makes pretty good, yeah, it makes pretty good.
Quite tasty, a little tart. It's almost all seed. So it's just a little bit of space between the skin and the seed.
Guia fruto amongano. Pepa nenga. Wedengi auno kabai. Mintoe. That's what it is. Professor Franco Chumpi. Rosa Alvarado, Franco Chumpi.
Steve, is that male?
Yeah. It's sort of like the Pony Express, only it comes by airplane. Keep them out of the grass because there's chiggers in the grass. And Olive? Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked.
Vicky Olivia, ay, temo imba. Abi. Temo imba ay. Venga, Winnie, Quichua Territory, Indian andaba. Subimos suave. I balanced it.
I saw it right off, and I went over to her. Gave her a big hug.
And Comey, do you remember Comey?
Oh, yes. No, Comey from 1968.
Yeah, long time. I know him from 1961.
Comey and Chemo were in the United States, and I met them in 1968. Yeah.
Eduardo Maculi Nenoga, Marilu Tomenga Tonia. Aroki Nani Cabo. Ayamono. Mana mai Kevin. Aboy. Ayamono Nantaramai. Kuyo. Kuyo with the Bito Wedengi Gunga. Mana mai respira humo. You're doing a great job, Henry. I have a list of medicines I'll give to Galo when he comes. We can go up to the church. Acá no. Ayúdame. Eduardo Maculi Winga, Nano Winga, Miguel, ahí Esteban, Eli, ahí Marilu Tonia, Nano Tono, Eli, Esteban Maculi Nanoga. This was Aunt Rachel's house, and that was Dayuma and Comey's house, and now they've moved here. And this is Comey. Comey, tomanani dube inimi? Back in the 70s, a terrible epidemic of polio swept through the downriver part of the tribe. Not sure how it came in, but many of the Waodani died. Would you do me a favor? Would you write down, see whatever information you can get here on this wheelchair? Sure. So and measure the size of those two front wheels so I can get new front wheels for them. It's been years and I can't remember what size they were. This is one of the ways that the upriver Waodani showed that they really had been transformed, because Nana and many of the people who were the victims of polio were their enemies in the downriver group. ¿Cuántos pasajeros llevamos en las tres canoas? ¿Y otros?
La toca es madre de sus primas. Sí. Okay. ¿Dos hermanas?
Vito mempo among ano? Among ano? Pike? Gimari nanomoka? This is Delilah from Palm Beach. This is her granddaughter. Vito mempo aya keminga? Wadengi gimari abo. Wadengi. Dayuman Comey's grandson Shane is a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Sam married a nurse from the U.S. and so Shane went to school in Florida. He's a U.S. citizen. I think maybe he's graduated. He's in service. When you came from Arajuno, just as the clearings underneath you stopped, that's where the border between Quichua Territory and Waodani Territory starts. And if you looked off as you were flying, there was a ridge on your left side and a ridge on your right side, which there always is if you're flying east or west out here. It was that ridge that on the right side that Aunt Betty and Aunt Rachel walked over, and they walked down to what we call the Tobetaro River. The Quichuas call it the Oglan. They went down the Oglan. That's where the rescue party went too. And then they got into this river out here, which is the Arajuno, we call it out here, or the Curaray in Spanish. They came down till they got almost to here, and then they went up the Diuiwano, and then walked over another ridge and lived at Tiwano first with Dayuma, and then Minkai and Kimo and Dawa. And
Good it. I bought a boom. I got my go and go to my good. But Bana Bonavana, I knew. But Diamond Nemo Naria, good Nemo Imba, Money Diamond. Don't want 10 on my Diamond.
Aunt Betty stayed for 2 years, and Aunt Rachel lived the rest of her life with the tribe. Total of about 36 years from 1958 until she died of cancer in 1994. Dayuma wanted to come over and live on this river, so they came over, and she wanted to be near where Palm Beach was. So that's when they started this place, and they named it Toñampade. It's named after a friend of mine, and Tementas and Cobas and Niwas, who was the first Waodani martyr. He was the one that got up in church and said, God told me in a dream that I should go and teach my own people, because he had been kidnapped in a spearing raid. So he went down there, and then he called on two-way radio and said, I think they're going to spear me. And so all the believers up here said, tonight when everybody goes to sleep, you flee and go over to such and such a river, and we'll get Star to send the Dayanim, the helicopter, to go get you and bring you out so that you'll live. And his response was, you know, God, the Creator, sent me here, and speaking to him all night tonight, if he sees it well that I flee, then I'll flee. If he sees it well that I'll stay, I'll stay. So everybody waited for the next day for his contact to see what he'd say, and he said, no, he said, God told me to stay here and teach the people. And then they said, but they're going to spear you. And he said, well, if they spear me, then he'll tell some of you to come. And that was the last we heard of Tonya. They did go out and spear him. So they named this community Toñampade.
But I know the you get it, Ponin, the only one, you Minga and Anno at the Dinam bringing Baba. Hanging the Ponin down at the Anava. Pon the Arwine, or putting Pon Harmony, meaning Arwine. You make a monobetum Arwine bit in the Waponim and 9 to Wapotin.
If you've read the Great Omission, this is the church we were talking about that people came in and built, and as you can see, it's nicely built on cement posts and things, but the Waodani couldn't match it. They didn't know what that soft stuff was that got hard, this stuff, and they didn't have chainsaws to make boards, and they didn't have money to buy chicken wire or tin. So as the building began to age and started to fall down, I was talking with another missionary saying, you know, why don't you let the people here build the schoolhouses and things? They said, you know, they don't know how. And I said, well, but they could learn. And then he said, well, you know, they don't even maintain the church. it was built for them. But I asked the Waodani, and they said, well, the foreigners built it, and the foreigners gave the money for it, and the foreigners brought the tin, and they said, what if they get upset? It became obvious that they didn't consider that they had permission to take care of it because it wasn't theirs. And then when Aunt Rachel died, we buried her right here. This is the marker that we put down. It says, Nemo Wudero, Wengu Itaro ante Oromonkete ante Nemo Pongantapa. That's what Kimo said in it. Translated, it means, teaching us to walk God's trail, star came. Comes from Romans 15:21, which was Aunt Rachel's life verse. Those who have not heard will hear, and those who haven't seen will understand.
Dios dice, venga para huyendo, para cuanto murió para cero, para subir. No más así, no puede para subir. Como un diablo para enfermo, para botarlo de Dios. No voy a.
And this plaque over here is a plaque that was put down for Dad and Pete and Roger and Ed and Jim. It was put down at the river where their grave was, but the river kept eating away at the bank, so somebody brought it up here and put it here. All right, one more plane comes. We're going to grab our stuff, your packs mostly, if you would, and if you can carry something else, and Tementa will organize the rest of it with Miniwa and Ima and Niwa Bito Tono Campamento Gobi. We appreciate it, Henry. Okay. That was, hey, that's a record. 11 o'clock, 7 flights with one plane. Inyana, Capitan Henry, pogro keka. Emen poke gomia abuelo, ayaro kinenki tekabeka. Nyene werengi nyene imba aya temuim. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, ciao. Bye.
7 by 11. That's really that's incredible. This is what we used to do when we were kids. It's a little rough on the mic, but other than just hope there isn't a lot of loose sand. We used to do that when the German Junkers would take off and we could practically lay flat.
At some point we're going to be having a memorial service for Mary Lou McCulley, which is just going to be a really special treat. I'm really glad I'm going to be here to be a part of that. She is just an amazing woman. I spent about a week with her, and she just became one of my heroes very quickly. You know, after her husband was killed, she stayed out here and ran a children's home, and she is just such an example to me in the few days that I got to know her.